you are recognized by neighbors as a wife, but legally you are nothing. You do not exist. If you have a child, they are also illegal. Or either they're illegal or legally they're not your child because they're on your husband's family registration and you are not. Hi, and welcome back to Tale of the Peopleist, and welcome back to MTGs and Refugees. This is sort of like the sequel to the first two episodes I did on this topic of refugees, North Korean refugees, right? If you missed those episodes, don't worry, there will be a little bit of recap. But basically, last week I went to a seminar on new research that was published about how the Chinese government is dealing with North Korean escapees in China, people who have illegally entered China after escaping from North Korea. And most of these, maybe 75%, are women. And it really matters what happens to them because we need to be honest about how political human rights violations, terrible economic circumstances, and border crossing really leads to exploitation of human beings. Which means, in short, people get taken advantage of because they don't have enough options to avoid it. And also because their information is not complete. We really need to talk about how asymmetry of information can cause people to be taken advantage of and to really get their basic human rights denied. So this is especially bad for women aged, teenager to early 30s for reasons that can be pretty obvious if you think about them. Just imagine the vulnerability of a woman who crosses borders by herself with limited information, bad economic circumstances. There's a lot of room for a lot of things to go wrong. So I want to talk about that today. Before I get into that, I'm just going to use a bit of a lighter deck today. I did cats before. This is the mono white version of that. I probably will not be too focused on the game, so you might see some editing across the game too to try to make the lecture content more clear. So you might see a little bit of sped up or cut out scenes. Again, the name of the game here is Airbender's Ascension to Blink, and we have Erebos and the Regal Caracal to blink in and produce lots of tokens. And this time we have Roaming Throne, which it doubles entry triggers for one tribe, and our tribe is going to be cats, so that means we get more cats. And we also have a kin binding over here, which has some synergies with tokens. Basically, it's going to make the tokens get more powerful, and it's going to increase the rate at which we put creatures on the field, which is good because that makes sure that our Airbender's Ascension will stay online. So that is basically our deck today, not too different from the last one. Win or lose, it's not a big deal. I just want to try to be serious about the topic that I'm discussing today and make sure I give proper respect to it, because I know it's a lot of very sensitive topics for other people who might share some of the experiences that North Korean women in China have, even if the people with those experiences are not North Korean and have never been to China, because there are certain ways that women get exploited all over the world. There are certain ways that women suffer human rights violations. And it's not that men don't suffer these human rights violations at all, but there's certainly some targeting and there's certainly some vulnerabilities that I'll talk about this time, and it'll become clear why this is kind of a gendered issue here when we talk about North Koreans in China. International Women's Day was 2 days ago before the filming of this video, so I think I'm right on time to discuss an issue that will resonate with women across the whole world. And I hope that many people who are interested in women's rights issues will see how especially hard it is for North Korean women and offer some help after they watch this video. If you do want to help North Korean women or North Korean people in general who have suffered or are at risk of suffering exploitation in North Korea or China, just let me know and I will direct you towards organizations that help out in different ways. Your support is absolutely greatly appreciated. So yeah, let's get into it. Now, to review the previous episodes, like I was saying then, North Korean people can be in China for legal reasons or for illegal reasons. And this is by Chinese law specifically. Legal reasons would be studying abroad or work dispatch. Work dispatches are not great. They're underpaid and they have to work long hours in factories with poor labor conditions. very bad oversight and terrible housing and food. And they don't get a lot of personal freedom. They can't just go around the country and check things out. They mostly spend their lives shuttled between dorm and workplace, and they don't get very much time off. And there are also some young North Korean women who work in restaurants, and that's one of the least terrible. It's definitely better than having to work in North Korea, but it's far from high quality living. Illegal, as I was saying before, basically means refugees. People who had to escape from North Korea for very serious reasons and did not register their entry into China. The escapes are especially for two big reasons. And first is economic, lack of food, medicine, other survival stuff. And this was really big from the 90s to the early 2000s. Most of the written accounts you can read are biographies from people who escaped before the 2000s, and I'll list a few of those in the sources list as well. But things have changed. North Korea has gotten mostly better, and it's also a lot harder to escape. They say things were really tough during COVID, but not long after the COVID situation, they opened their doors again, and they just started importing a lot of things from China again. And now they don't even accept humanitarian aid. So that signals to us on the outside that their food production is stable, even if it's far from great. But people are still leaving, and we still have some accounts from people who left after 2010 and after 2019. And a lot of them left for the second big reason, which is that they wanted to have a more free life. They wanted to have more choices in work, in education. They wanted to have more freedom in what they could watch or listen to or read, where they could go to, what they could say out loud. But they especially wanted the right to move around, to be able to move from city to city, province to province. And these are all rights that are just not protected in North Korea. The reports are not verified, but what we understand currently is that you can get put in prison and possibly executed for watching or sharing foreign media like music and movies. And when we say foreign, this includes South Korean productions as well. And that is stressful enough that some people just cannot take life in North Korea. But to be clear, lack of freedom can mean more than just having a boring and controlled life. It's not really about the 1984 stuff. I mean, sometimes it is, but it can be a lot worse than that. I once heard a story from a lady who was forced to work in mines as a young girl. Her name is Sharon Jong, and she has a book called Girl with Black Makeup. She escaped in 2012. And when we say North Koreans want freedom, we don't mean that they're chasing the American dream of liberalism and democracy, that they just want the right to protest and go to the polls or something like that. We mean that they often live like prisoners and they escape North Korea because they want to get out of that prison. And to be totally clear, not every North Korean lives like a prisoner. I might have mentioned it before, but there are the Dongju, the new wealthy, and their children who often live privileged urban lives in Pyongyang, Nampo, and a few other areas. Their lives are kind of like simplified South Korean lives, and they get to go to school and college, work in office jobs or medical, or they're members of the national band, or they're national actors, news anchors, something like that, something relatively comfortable. These are not the people who escape for reasons of liberty. We are talking about people who don't get to go to school because as kids they're working in mines or in the military or on farmland with dangerous equipment. Remember that talk I had before on slave labor on cocoa farms in Africa? Yeah, that kind of stuff, it happens in North Korea too, and those kids will grow into adults who just want to get away from it all. The third biggest reason, I imagine, has little to do with how the escapee feels about North Korea. We have to keep in mind a very simple reason why people will leave, and it's because their family members leave. Some parents will escape with their kids. Some siblings escape with their siblings. Someone will escape and then they'll save up $10,000 or $20,000 and they will literally purchase the freedom of their family members from the other side. I want to see my dad again. Make it happen. Here's $20,000. A few phone calls later, a week passes. Dad takes a taxi from Jilin to Qingdao Airport with a very nice quality fake ID, and then he lands in Incheon. Sometimes it's a relatively easy process. It's not that hard to save just a single person. If you're saving every single bit of money you earn in South Korea, get a 40-hour-a-week job, put aside $1,500 every month. A year later, it will happen. And by the way, minimum wage in South Korea works out to somewhere around $2,000 a month, US dollars a month, if you're working 40 hours a week. So yeah, it's possible. Okay, so now let's fast forward to where we're starting today. I said before, a lot of people, they escape on their own. There are guards posted across the Tuman and Yalu rivers, which run across the northern provinces of North Pyongan, Chagang, Yangon, and North Hamgyong. If you have the money, you just get some cigarettes, some gum, maybe, I don't know, some porn, some liquor, grease some palms, and a few guards will watch the stars together for half an hour. It's 500 meters across. That's less than a third of a mile. If it's winter, the river is frozen. Go, get over there. You're in China now. If you don't have the money, someone will have to arrange things for you. And you probably don't have the money. Rich people live in Pyongyang. They don't live in those 4 provinces I mentioned. So you get a broker. Someone says, hey, yeah, I'll help you across, brother, sister. You know, if you don't know better, you're not going to ask the price. Maybe they're just friendly. Oh, look, they don't have Reddit or whatever. They're not Googling, what does it cost to go to China illegally? If someone says they're going to get you across, what are you going to say? If you want to go, you're going to go. So you're a young woman, right? A broker gets you to the river. Guards are whistling. They're looking off in the other direction. Someone with a Chinese accent comes over and talks to the broker and then says to you, all right, let's go. You get across the river, you're in China, and now you're in the middle of the mountains and you have no clue where you are or where you're supposed to go. The Chinese guy says, come with me. He walks you to a town. He walks you to a house. He talks to some woman in Chinese. That woman hands him some money, and then she takes you into the house. What happens now? Well, you're young enough, you're pretty enough, probably you're about to become someone's wife. Congratulations, you just got sex trafficked. Sorry if that sounds too blunt, but that's how fast it goes. One moment you're in North Korea, an hour later you're now someone's romantic property. You're effectively a slave. Now, every situation is different. Some of the men are just unlucky. Some are unattractive. Some have pretty rough personalities. Some are physically or mentally disabled. If you're being trafficked as a wife, there should be some good reason. Let me be clear here. A Chinese man wants a Chinese wife. Language, culture, law, all of those things, they make just life easier for the Chinese guy. If a man is buying a wife, it's because he's somehow desperate. So you're probably not going to get a great deal out of this situation here. Let me also be clear here. You just crossed into China illegally. This means a lot of things that you would not have ever thought about if you're living in North Korea. You do not have an identity. You do not have an identity card. You cannot sign up for insurance. You cannot take a train or a bus. You cannot go to school. You cannot talk to the police about anything. You do not exist in the country, and you are not eligible for any public services, and you are highly restricted from any private services. And that means there is no way for a Chinese man to legally register you as a wife, which means your family unit is not common law or anything. It is purely a common idea, a local idea. You are recognized by neighbors as a wife, but legally you are nothing. You do not exist. If you have a child, they are also illegal. Or either they're illegal or legally they're not your child because they're on your husband's family registration and you are not. Getting pretty tricky here, right? This is bad enough for the escaped North Korean woman, but it can be even worse for the half-Chinese child. They don't legally have a mother. In some cases, they don't legally have a father. In that case, they also can't go to schools or to hospitals or clinics. If you go to the NKDB museum, you can see a large painting of a disabled child. His mother wanted to take him to a school for children with special needs. They said they only take Chinese kids. Her son was not registered as a Chinese citizen. They do not take undocumented children as students. Just imagine that experience. I've read through all kinds of accounts of what happens to these trafficked women. I've heard about success stories and about failure stories. The success stories they're the ones in South Korea mostly. They give us some excellent interviews about life in China, which is why we know what's going on. And I'll get into that soon, but we'll talk about surveillance and fake identities and things like that. But a lot of what I've already told you is stuff we figured out from their accounts. They've been a huge help, and I deeply appreciate their contributions to our knowledge. The failure stories they're kind of gruesome, if I'm being honest. I had a rage moment when I was analyzing a document about a legal case in China. A North Korean woman, she felt deceived after she escaped to China. She was trafficked to one Chinese family by a broker. Her mother-in-law treated her like a house servant, basically. She was so depressed that she ran away and stayed with another North Korean woman who was also living in China and explained how she felt about the whole situation. That North Korean woman said, "You should stay with this guy. He will help you out. He'll smooth things over." So she met up with that guy, who then sold her to another family. And before she knew it, she was made into a bridal slave a second time. And for a whole night, she didn't eat, she didn't talk, she didn't sleep. The family was at a loss. What do we do with her? So they called the police. Now is a good time to talk about North Korean women and the Chinese police. Let's be clear here. North Korean escapees are not welcome in China. And I will not say that 100% of the time talking to the police means it's over, but it can end pretty badly, especially if there's a crackdown or something, or you've been reported. Going to the police can mean deportation real quick. If you have no one to vouch for you, deportation. If you broke some other law, deportation. You have to be super clean, or else a talk with the police means a one-way ticket back to North Korea. I'll explain what happens in other cases, but now I'm going to get into what we covered in the seminar. China has a massive deportation network. I used to think it was just like local police ring you up, take you to a center, then some national bureau makes a call and ships you out. No, that's not right. The seminar I went to, the researchers showed us a chart that had like 20 organizations, including different police and military bureaus. They're all in charge of deportations. And this includes like specialized bureaus who only handle deportations. And it also includes all these different foreign affairs bureaus, the ones that register and process non-citizens. It's a lot to process, all these different bureaus and all their different functions. But what I want to say is it's a machine. If the police want you out, they're going to put you on an assembly line that will include tons of transport cars and then eventually a handoff to security officers on the North Korean side. That's not pretty. We had an escapee talk with us. I think she was in her mid-30s and she stopped halfway through her talk to try to keep herself from breaking down in sobs. She's been through hell. They stripped her down, they took her clothes off, and they did all these terrible cavity searches to her on the Chinese side before they deported her. They sent her to another processing facility in China, and then they deported her back to North Korea. The North Korean officers, they interrogated her, and then they sent her to another place, and then they interrogated her more, and so on and so forth until she got a trial. It was a public trial. people threw stones at her. Each time she got processed by someone else, each time she got moved, they sent her to smaller and more crowded and more dirty and disgusting prison cells. And they had worse food. In the worst situation, she was crammed like 20 or 30 people to a cell with rotting corn to eat, nothing else. And the guards banned them from using the toilet in the room because the guards were complaining about the smell of this toilet that was just out in the open. I mean, good Lord. Maybe you don't believe that. Maybe I am easily duped. I'm willing to believe it when I see someone telling their story like that. Could she be, I don't know, could she be an actor? Maybe, but I personally am choosing to believe not. I've only ever heard the worst stories about North Korean laws and arrests and prisons and about being deported. It's always a violent experience. It's never clean. If someone has been in a North Korean prison and has a good experience to tell me, please come up and tell me. I want to hear it. I am all ears. To bring it back around, not every police encounter ends up in a deportation. Sometimes they don't even get arrested. So here's what we learned from the success stories. Chinese police, they don't generally want to get rid of North Korean wives of Chinese men. I mean, if you think about it, you got a bunch of lonely men out in the countryside. One-child policy really cut into the number of available Chinese women. And, you know, these guys, they have their imported wives, I guess we'll have to call them. If you're an officer out in this little township, do you really want to mess up the village dynamics? Do you want to piss off some villagers? This is where the idea of guanxi really comes into play here. Do you know that word, guanxi? It's not really a special word. It basically just means connections, but not necessarily in like a nepotistic way. It just means you're connected to people around you, people in your hub. And that carries a kind of economic value. This goes for villages. So everyone in the village knows you're from North Korea. Everyone knows you're illegal. But you're nice, you don't cause any trouble, you help out old Miss Liu, and you have a child with her son, and you clean up and you cook. No one dislikes you. And, you know, everyone has known Miss Liu for decades, and everyone knows how sad she was when she found out her son had a mental disability. You're a nice young lady who makes her son happy, even if you're from Korea, that doesn't matter. That's your connection. You're a part of this village. So there's a myth that gets pushed around in some circles in China, some places with a lot of North Korean escapees. They say if you're unregistered, you'll have a hard time. If you go to the police and you register, then you can live like a legal citizen or a legal resident. That's a lie, but they'll do it anyway. They'll register with the police. The police let them stay because they're no trouble. I mean, what kind of criminal would just show up and say, hey, register me, right? So you get registered and then they install all sorts of spyware on your phone. GPS, call recording, yeah, the whole 9 yards. Every week, you get a message from your local officer. Hi, Miss Kim, Officer Wong checking in. How are you doing? Good, great, bye. And if you don't answer it, knock on your door. And if you turn off your phone and you try to go somewhere without the GPS, knock on your door. More phone calls than usual. Daily instead of weekly check-ins. It starts to get worse and worse. Oh no, you don't want to move around, by the way. When they say stay home, they really want you to stay in your village. They don't care if you stay in your little village, if you're tending to rice fields, helping out around the house, whatever. If you try to go on a trip, that could be bad. Even if you just want to go down to Beijing or Shanghai or something, you could be moving somewhere. You could be escaping to South Korea. See, China has an agreement with North Korea. That's why they have all these little bureaus and things, right? They do not want you just running around free. And they especially do not want you talking about North Korea. They don't want you escaping to another country to talk about North Korea. That is a very big security issue. Local police don't have to worry all that much if they can control you. You know, if you cause them some trouble though, you get them in trouble by talking to some people you're not supposed to be talking to. If you get some police from other provinces involved, that's not going to be good for them. You try to make things hard for them. Yeah, you can get the picture here. So the North Korean wives, they can't move around. They're being monitored. What do they get out of this registration? Why do they register with police? Actually, nothing. They can't sign up for healthcare or anything. They don't have resident cards. They don't have police protection. If they break the law, like by stealing or getting in a fight, they're going to get deported anyway. They're supposed to register and then keep their heads low. So that's exactly what would happen if they broke the law while being unregistered anyway. I mean, if you don't break the law, they're not going to see you. If you don't get into a fight, if you don't steal things, whatever. If you steal things or get into a fight, whatever, you're probably going to get deported. You know, if you're raising your visibility too much. So what's the difference between being registered and unregistered? Yeah, if you're wondering what it is, if you're wondering what the point is, it's not for the benefit of the North Korean women. It's for the police. It's for surveillance. The best way a North Korean bride can actually get around China is with a fake ID. They do that. They find someone who looks like them, or they have some gangster make them an ID that doesn't scan, or they'll get someone else's ID and then they'll change the picture. That all doesn't work so well now. It used to work before, 2009. They used to have like paper IDs and things like that. But now it's all a unified digital database, and they can do facial scans and things like that. That's wild. It's powerful. So these North Koreans, they really have to keep their heads down. No buying train tickets, right? So how about taxis? If you can't take a train, can you take a taxi? I heard about one lady a long time ago, it might have been 20 years ago. She just paid a few $1,000s to take a taxi from Jilin all the way down to Thailand, to the border, to the Thailand-China border, right? That used to work. But guess what now? Cameras in the taxis. And worse than that, some taxi drivers are actually undercover North Korean government workers. Or, I mean, that's what they say. I cannot confirm this 100%. I just want to tell you what I've heard. So by now, I think I've painted a pretty ugly picture. There's a lot of ways this can end badly, and it sounds pretty bad all around, a bad deal. And that's why, even though the ladies escape from North Korea, even though they're comfortable for a minute, they keep going to South Korea. It might take them a few years to get the money they need. It might take them some time to make up their minds, to get info and resources to be certain that they can get to South Korea, that they can do it safely enough, that they'll actually get there and not get caught and get deported. And this is what they tell us when we ask them, why did you decide to come to South Korea in the end? Why didn't you just stay in China? And a lot of them, I would say, actually do live quite comfortably in China. They say it's pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's definitely not North Korea. There's food and housing, there's heating, they can have cell phones and TV, they can have all these things that they didn't get on the other side of the river. But it's not enough, not with all the surveillance. One woman said she had to act like she was her daughter's aunt when she was checking her in at school. She went to the school and the principal or teachers, whoever, said, "Who is this? Who are you?" And she said, "I'm this child's aunt." So just imagine what that's like, living like a ghost around your own daughter. And there's that mother I talked about earlier who couldn't get schooling for her mentally disabled son. There's a lot. And actually a lot of people do stay in China for a long time without meaning to leave. But then there are these moments like the Olympics, or like when Kim Jong-un came into power, where they just do these sweeps through areas that have a lot of North Koreans. And God help you if you've already been registered. I think they did a mass deportation of like 130 people one time. I think it was like 1,000 people in 1 year. You can check up the numbers, but it gets pretty bad. Just imagine how tight the cells were there on the way out. I'm not even done here. This is not all that can happen. Some of these women, they don't become brides. Some of them get forced into different kinds of sex work. And one popular form that I've heard of is online work. They actually target South Korean men as customers. And the North Korean women, they live in a kind of computer farm, like a cramped apartment, I guess, in some city in Northeast China. And they have to spend like 12 or 16 hours a day just doing stuff on camera, whatever the customer asks. Obviously stripping and things, but if they ask them to hurt their bodies, they have to do that too. Maybe it could be easier than living as a wife, but maybe not. There's another thing that North Korean women do. This is the last thing that came to mind. Many of them work as brokers. Yeah, they're there grabbing up young North Korean women and shuttling them into Chinese families. A lot of the women who are getting sold to Chinese people, they're getting trafficked by other North Koreans. And these women who are trafficking North Koreans, they are women who have also been trafficked. It pays, but they also do it out of a sense of duty. They feel that trafficking saved them from North Korea, and they want to save North Korean women. What do you call this? It's such a wild, complicated situation. I can't just pass judgment on this. It's wild. So I'm glad someone is saving people from North Korea. I'm glad someone is saving the people who want to get out. But man, the people who are trying to escape, they just have no idea what's on the other side. And it should come as no surprise that organizations in Seoul are spending a lot of time and a lot of money giving therapy to North Korean arrivals. And by the way, no, I did not forget about North Korean men. The ones in China, they also get sold into labor, farm work factories. I don't think they become foreign husbands. I don't think there's enough demand for that. I imagine they probably spend a lot less time in China because they can't integrate as easily when they don't have a family, right? And I think they're also more willing to embrace danger. The ones I've talked to, they've spent a lot of time on the run. So there's that. So to wrap it up, I hope I've made it clear with this one why I do what I do, why I'm an advocate for North Korean human rights. We tend to think that the worst things happen to North Koreans in North Korea. And that's true sometimes, but for a lot of people, it just gets worse when they leave, or it keeps going. A lot of these people will spend the rest of their lives feeling like they're being watched, even if they get to South Korea. They're always careful about what they say, who they talk to, where they go. They can't rest. Sometimes I think about this scene in Gulliver's Travels, the movie, the last one with, I think it was Jack Black. Gulliver he wakes up with night terrors. He's back home after his big long trip, but he wakes up with night terrors, dreaming that he's back on the islands, getting tortured by giants or Lilliputians. He's just never able to rest even after he's already gotten back home. That sort of tear is bigger than I can really imagine in my own life. It's hell on earth, and that's really why I want to help out North Koreans. So I hope you can get that. I hope you can understand this feeling that I'm talking about, the feeling that they have of always running, of getting out of the frying pan and going right into the oven. If you want to help out, let me know. There's always something we need help with. And yeah, if you care, then just keep on peopling.